With the release of defensive tackle Isaiah Buggs after a litany of offseason legal issues that extend, from what I understand, prior to even this offseason, Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs suddenly find themselves in possession of another spot on the 90-man roster. Now, for all intents and purposes, whoever walks through that door at One Arrowhead Drive will be the 90th man on the 90-man, which will eventually have to be cut down to 53 men before the first week of the regular season. So, what are we talking about with how the Kansas City Chiefs fill this one spot? Maybe nothing. But even if it ends up being a player that does not make the roster, we can learn a little bit about what it is the Kansas City Chiefs feel about the roster as it stands. So I wanted to go through the roster or through the position groups sort of one by one and talk about what it may or may not mean if the Chiefs sign someone at that position group. We'll get to that in just 1 second, guys, but if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button, because the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And if you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. So, will the Chiefs use that 90th spot on the roster to sign a quarterback? I think there's almost zero chance. You have your starter, you have your veteran backup, and you have a developmental guy that you're going to maybe have either on the active roster this season or on the practice squad. So I don't really, and you've got a couple of guys. One other guy there as well. Ian Book, is that the only other player? Oladokin and Ian Book at the bottom of the roster there at the position. But whatever the case, I don't really see any other quarterbacks that, from my knowledge of who's still out there right now, that would be interesting to the Chiefs for any reason. So I don't really think it will be a quarterback that they sign. What about a halfback? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs have recently cut two of their halfbacks, so I think that there is a chance, there is a possibility that the player they bring in ends up being a running back. There are a couple articles today from your normal suspects as far as the Chiefs media is concerned, talking about maybe the Chiefs are a little bit light at the running back position. I disagree. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are, I think that the Chiefs' ideal backfield is filled with younger players, and that's basically exactly what they have right now. And if there were a player on the open market who was young and had qualities that the Kansas City Chiefs desired, I think that he would have probably been in that group of UDFAs that they signed with Carson Steele et al. But he's not, right? So the Kansas City Chiefs have seen what they have in their... They saw what they had in Erik Prince last season. He spent last year on the practice squad. They have seen a little bit about their UDFA class in rookie minicamp. Now they've gone through mandatory minicamp and seen what they have a little bit more, and they were willing to cut two of those players. I think what that communicates is not the lack of talent at the position, but rather that they feel comfortable with the bodies that they have and will have to then prune from there. What about a wide receiver? Will the Kansas City Chiefs go out and sign a wide receiver? I don't think so, but Hunter Renfro is still out there. Now, this is actually sort of a funny thing. I was very big on Hunter Renfro going into this offseason, or going into the free agency period. He was released by the Raiders in March, I believe. And there has been some chatter lately, and I made a video in response to this, about the Kansas City Chiefs trading Sky Moore. Would they put Sky Moore out there as trade bait? Did you know that Hunter Renfro had a better season than Sky Moore last year? Last year, I believe, was Hunter Renfro's worst season of his career, and it was still better than Sky Moore's second season in the NFL. Hunter Renfro, here we are at the end of June, heading into July, still finds himself as a free agent. Hunter Renfro might be retired effectively from the NFL. Now, even if he doesn't find a team before training camp, injuries happen, right? So I think that he will find a job at some point during the season if he's not signed in the next couple weeks. But if Hunter Renfro, who has a 1,000-yard season to his credit, is just sitting out there in free agency, who had 255 receiving yards last season versus the 250 put up by Sky Moore, why would anyone trade something for Sky Moore as opposed to just going out and signing Hunter Renfro? Age is a little bit of an ordeal there, but so is experience. So is having won in the league. I believe Hunter Renfro's rookie season was a 650-yard season, which would mean that his rookie season, if I'm not mistaken, I could be absolutely wrong on this, but his rookie season would have been bigger than both Sky Moore's first 2 seasons in the league. But besides that, I think if there were anyone the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to add, they would already have had him on the roster. If there was someone they wanted to add more than Mecole Hardman, he would have been on the roster prior to Mecole Hardman's signing. So it is unlikely, in my opinion, that while the Kansas City Chiefs might need some wide receivers, depending on how you feel about the Chiefs' wide receivers after the second or third spot, I don't think that the name they sign is going to be a wide receiver. And so I guess I should have said this beforehand. Brett Veach is absolutely going to sign someone. Brett Veach is not going to go into training camp with 89 players when he's allowed 90. He is a very aggressive general manager and has proven that, hey, if I've got some spaghetti to throw on the wall, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And if it sticks, great, man. What about tight end? I think that tight end is highly unlikely as well. The Kansas City Chiefs find themselves at least 3 deep with Kelsey Wiley and Noah Gray, but don't sleep on Baylor Cupp. I think that I think it's unlikely that it is a tight end. I think there's one of the smaller chances per position, in my opinion, would be tight end. But if it is a tight end, I think that it might be a great big hulking sort of blocking tight end. I think they might bring in a Blake Bell type to put that position in a field of variance, right? If you want to have that guy, I don't think you have him on the roster right now. Baylor Cupp, I think, is going to be grown into that type of position. I think it's probable Baylor Cupp finds his way onto the practice squad this season. The Kansas City Chiefs, for the past few years, have been a very big fan of having a number of tight ends either on the roster or cycle through the roster. What about offensive tackle? I think that this is a possibility. Insurance is always a smart play. Just go ahead and ask Warren Buffett. Very profitable. The Chiefs this year are absolutely in Super Bowl or bust mode, right? If they sign an offensive tackle here, it could be one of those under-the-radar Donovan Smith types from last season who ends up signing a small deal late, and starting for the bulk of the season. If that is the case, it tells us they are not 100% behind either of the young guys, Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia, on the roster now. I don't think that it would say anything about Jawan Taylor if it were the case. I think that they are probably comfortable with the fact that Jawan Taylor is likely to have a rebound season, in my opinion. And I think that's the opinion the Kansas City Chiefs have too. Otherwise, I don't think they would have given him that big deal that they did. Now, I said that tight end was one of the smallest chances on the roster for whether this 90th player signed will play that position. Center and guard might be the smallest chance. I think that you have your starters, you have drafted two guys that will, Hunter Nourzad and CJ Hansen, play those positions as well. I think that you have a couple guys on the roster that the Chiefs do like at those positions. Plus you've brought in a few UDFA offensive linemen in this class. So I think that almost 0% chance, in my opinion, unless there's somebody out there that I just don't know about. Now, moving on to the defensive positions here. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. Not because the Kansas City Chiefs defense is bad, but because, well, there's a couple positions on defense that you always need players, and there's one position on defense that the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of weak at, and it happens to be the same position that Isaiah Buggs played. Will the Chiefs sign a defensive tackle with this suddenly open roster spot? It's possible. But here's the thing. If they are making the signing to replace Isaiah Buggs, the Buggs drama was long-lived. It is probable that the Chiefs knew this move was possible, if not likely, a long time ago. And the last player that they signed was Alex Gubner, who was a UDFA that they brought in to try out. So maybe they had several names in on that tryout and liked one of those guys as well, and were waiting for this move to become official, and then you sign this guy. I think it's likely the Alex Gubner signing was made in preparation for the Isaiah Buggs cut to be made. So if the player the Chiefs sign is a defensive tackle, I don't think that it is to replace Isaiah Buggs. I think it's likely that move was Alex Gubner. I think if the Chiefs do sign a defensive tackle, it is to try to figure out more about that position. I think if they do sign a defensive tackle, it is likely not to be an athletic guy like Alex Gubner, but to be a bigger guy like Isaiah Buggs, like Derek Noddy, a guy who is going to hopefully come in and stop the run. Now, maybe the most intriguing position on this list, defensive end. I think it's possible. You cannot have too many edge players, and I think we have to admit that the health of B.J. Thompson is a mystery, if nothing else. I don't know if too many details from that have ever come out. I doubt they ever will if they have not. He had a cardiac event and a seizure. Look, guys, I know nothing about this. I know absolutely nothing about this. What I know about seizures and what I know about guys in their 20s having cardiac events, in my opinion, and this is palms to the sky, my opinion, unlikely B.J. Thompson plays football again. I think these things, and look, again, I don't want to sound like I am saying anything negative about B.J. Thompson. That is terrifying. I have known one other person who had seizures and played football, and he ended up passing away at 20 years old. And it's not good stuff, right? So and again, I have no idea what the issue is with B.J. Thompson. I just want to put it out there that I think, if nothing else, it's at least a mystery. It's a black box. I think if they do end up using this roster spot on a defensive end and edge player, it is going to be a swing for the fences. It is going to be a guy like B.J. Thompson who has great measurables. Obviously, you're not going to get a home run on measurables. B.J. Thompson was a very light player, right? That's why he was available later. He had good numbers all across the board except for the weight issue. So it could be that one of the, he doesn't have a great 40, but he's got good size. He doesn't have good size, but he's a real fast guy with good cone numbers, right? Something like that. So what about linebacker? Well, I think this is the least likely position that we will see signed on the defensive side of the ball, because the Kansas City Chiefs have collected so much talent there, and they got another UDFA this year who's probably an NFL player at the linebacker position. In my opinion, the Chiefs have too many NFL level linebackers, and will probably end up having to cut one towards the end of the preseason, because I just don't think that you can trade linebackers. I don't think there's much of a market there, although I've said this 1,000 times and I'll say it 1,001. If I were Brett Veach, I would absolutely be leveraging the fact that my job security is greater than any general manager in the NFL, possibly greater than any general manager in the history of the NFL, and I'd be trading players for 7th-round draft picks in 2030. I don't know. I assume that's allowed in the NFL, right? But I would be, look, you want this linebacker? It's fine. You're probably not going to be the GM in 2031, are you? Give me the 2031 7th-round pick. You can have this guy right now. That's what I would be doing if I were Brett Veach and I had a glut of players at any position. I would cut no one. I would find someone to give me something from some time. But I don't think that the linebacker position is going to be signed by the Kansas City Chiefs with this 90th spot. Probably by the time I post this video, that player will be signed. But there's 2 other positions here that I don't think will be signed. But hey, cornerback and safety, the Kansas City Chiefs do not need players at either of those positions, but they do have Brett Veach as their general manager. So this is possible. Now, there's one more question, or series of questions, depending on how you want to look at things, that needs to be answered. Will this player be another UDFA like Alex Gubner added late? Will it be just a young player, a guy who's maybe 1, 2, 3 years into the league? Or will it be a veteran, a guy like Hunter Renfro? The answer to this question may be the most telling. Why? The Kansas City Chiefs have been to 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, so they do have experience there. And while every season is its own thing, while every season has its own highs, its own pitfalls, all of these sorts of things, I think once you get yourself to 6 consecutive AFC championships and 4 out of 5 Super Bowls, you have a feel for what a Super Bowl type roster looks like. So if the Kansas City Chiefs go out and add a Hunter Renfro, if they go out and add a Donovan Smith, it may be management telling us without telling us they need to maybe sprinkle something on top here because they don't know if they've got it this season. If it is a young player, depending on the position, it might mean they're looking for someone that they can, I hate to use these terms, but run into the ground. If you sign a 24-year-old running back that's 235 pounds, that means you think you're going to be up in a lot of games and you just want to grind out some first downs. If it is a UDFA like Alex Gubner added late, this is the scouting department not going to rest. This is the scouting department working overtime, working all the time, and saying, hey, yeah, we want to win the Super Bowl this year, but 2025 is going to come sooner than you think. And maybe this cornerback out of Northern Iowa that we've had our eye on, but you wouldn't let us sign because we had 19 corners on the roster, he might be good to stash on the practice squad this year and could play next year. So I think that these are the real things worth looking at, worth considering with who it is and forecasting who the Kansas City Chiefs are going to bring in for this 90th spot on the roster. If I had to put money on it, it would be a defensive lineman. I don't know which position, defensive tackle or defensive end, edge, however you want to say it, but my money would be on that position group despite the fact that I don't think they are going to be making this signing to replace Isaiah Buggs. I believe that Alex Gubner was brought in as the replacement to Isaiah Buggs prior to Isaiah Buggs being kicked off the roster. I think that it could be corner. Just because it's Veach, we got to be real with each other. But I think that when looking at the roster and looking at the guys who are guaranteed starting spots, Chris Jones, and kind of that's it at defensive tackle. And then the Chiefs have never had the deep rotation at edge that a guy like Steve Spagnuolo wants to have. They've got a lot of guys that can probably step onto the field, but I don't think they have the just stable of guys that they can run out there and be sure first down, second down, third down, this guy can get a sack. So that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs-based content, because that's all I do here on this channel. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, stick around, right? Because I hope to have you back for the next one.